Hello, everybody. Last time we spoke about entertainment. So this time I thought to speak more specifically about gaming. We discussed it a little bit, but I thought to go a bit more into gaming as it relates to the Torah, as it relates to Jewish thought. So just to recap a bit from last time, so we mentioned that the drive to enter a virtual reality, a game world, is the drive, the ambition, the aspiration to exit the boundaries, the limitations of exile, stemming from the first exile of Egypt, so to leave Egypt. And in Hebrew, the word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, is cognate to Metzarim, which means boundaries. So gaming is all about possibility. If done correctly, it can free our minds to start thinking in these ways. But as we'll discuss, there's better ways to go about it, and we're going to try to drill some points home. So the first thing to understand is to leave Egypt is to leave limitations. It also means to give birth to one's potential. Like at the time, it was giving birth to the Jewish people, right? To leave Egypt, to receive the Torah at Mount Sinai, it was the birth of a nation. And birth is a very joyous thing. It says, Ema banim smecha, that the mother of children is joyous, is happy. So the act of giving birth is a joyous thing. It's also fulfilling our potential. We give birth to spiritual children, like raising students, teaching others. It's called the fruits of our labors. The tzaddik, the righteous, provides sustenance through the fruits of his mitzvahs, of the good deeds of the righteous, that others benefit from those good deeds. So we have here already starting to appreciate these parallels between living up to our potential, between birth, and starting to see the world as open, that when you start a new task, that when a new task is begun, there's only potential, there's only open roads ahead, right? So, and then how then to proceed is according to a bit of our free will and also divine providence of God leading us forward along the path. Like we said last time, that the intellect leads a person forward, and it's the heart that's the yearning to come close to God is from the heart, which is also teshuvah, to return to God. Right. So now we're saying that this yearning of the heart is also joyous, is also the joyous birthing of new physical offspring and our spiritual good deeds and good actions in this world. So we have here that we said last time that the entertainment industry, and now we're speaking about gaming, is a waste of time, right? Now we're trying to rectify that and to show how to rectify time. So how does Kohelet, which is King Solomon, how does it start off in Ecclesiastes? Vanity of vanities. And then later on in chapter 3 are listed 14 pairs of a time for this and a time for that. 14 pairs, so 28 instances of time. And some commentaries say that this is a time to love and a time to hate. It could be that this is the same, it's talking about the same thing. Just sometimes you love something, sometimes you hate something, and so forth down the line of all 14 pairs. That could be that each one is talking about the same thing. Just there's these two sides, these two opposites. So for Ecclesiastes, that's talking about, that it has this focus on time, and to start off with vanity of vanities, that everything is not, hevel hivalim, everything is not and nothingness. The actual person in the Torah, whose name is Hevel, Abel in English, so Cain killed him when he was only 50 days old, it says. And the value, we'll go into that, but that's so only 50 days old. It's a fleeting lifetime. So if time is so fleeting, if lifetimes are so fleeting, so how do we take this in a positive way? So it says the first step, or the most important thing to keep in mind to rectify time, is to be mezuman, to be ready to rectify time, and to be ready in the service of God. That at every moment, that here I stand ready to serve God and to fulfill my purpose in life. And even though life is like a fleeting image, as it says, a fleeting shadow, still, during my lifetime, to maximize and to live a completeness of days, that at every moment I have in mind to fulfill my potential in the service of God. So the act of giving birth to a physical child is one of mesiras nefesh, of self-sacrifice. And through a miracle each and every time, that God makes it so that the mother survives, or God forbid they don't. But hopefully, God willing, that mothers survive birth, and otherwise it's by divine decree. So when God is making it that the mother survives, this is a miracle. So every moment, this is a good first thing to keep in mind, that there was the act of giving birth. It's a time of death, but through the miracle, it's a time of life, and great life. Hopefully, again, both for the mother and for the child. So every moment, also, we have this ability to see every moment as a moment in time to fulfill our potential. So where does this come from, of this seeing others playing games, first of all? So the first thing to understand is that I'm seeking to achieve a quick fix in something external that I really need to fix, to rectify internally. And there's even a way to correspond the 14 times to 14 righteous people as corresponding to the month of Nisan, to the month of our redemption, which is the month of Passover. So there's this idea of time, again, these two sides of time, these two opposite experiences, relating to Torah personalities, to righteous people. So when we see this celebrity on YouTube or Twitch or what have you, that again, this is the secularization of this concept of time relating to righteous individuals, and we learn about time through the actions of righteous individuals. So there's a difference of opinion about the fulfillment of time, whether from the time of our birth we have a set number of days, or we can increase our days through our good actions throughout our life. We can increase our years, that God gives us more time. So Rabbi Akiva, the great sage Rabbi Akiva, said that no, that we have a verse that says that your days will be fulfilled, through your good actions, through your good deeds. Like it says of Moses, that he lived his complete life, 120 years, and his good actions were numerous, of teaching Torah and raising up a whole nation, spreading the word of God, giving them the Torah. But yet he lived a complete life. It says that when the righteous, they pass away on the same day that they were born, which was the case with Moses on the 7th of Adar. So that's a sign that he lived a complete life. But there's people that live longer than him. But no, this was his living a complete life. So Rabbi Akiva says from this verse that if you notwithstanding, it's very good that all the good actions were done in the service of God. So this means that your life is fulfilled. The days are fulfilled. But if God forbid a person does sins, so then time is taken away. But other sages, say that maybe you can add to the days. Maybe the days of one's life can be added to. So we talked about in the past that the time, it's not so clear that time is experienced the same, right? There's relativity. There's, depending on the speed that one's traveling, is the experience of time for them, for their perspective of time, and those looking on as well. It's not necessarily this straight arrow, of the thermodynamic arrow of time, that it's a constant for all at all times and so forth. So what we're saying now is that according to both opinions, maybe they can be, because in Torah, when you have two opinions, even though they're opposite sides, they're both true on some level. So Rabbi Akiva says, no, the days of our life are set, and the sages say maybe that through prayer, through good actions, God extends our life and keeps extending our life as we continue with our good deeds and teaching Torah and our service of God in this world. So imagine it's folding time, folding more goodness into that time, and it appears that it's a longer lifespan, depending on who's looking and who's experiencing it. So this is all to discuss the notion of living a productive life, of giving birth to new realities and new potential within ourselves at every moment. And it comes from this death experience of always being willing to sacrifice our life in the service of God. But especially in this generation, we're not actually asked to do that. In previous generations, it was intense persecution, and we were asked to do that. But in our generation, we have to push ourselves in the way that we're doing it with all our might, no ulterior motives, completely devoted to bringing Mashiach, to bringing the redemption, and we immerse ourselves. Talk about an immersive experience in gaming. So we immerse ourselves completely in that, in our service of God. So we have some these central concepts, right? We have the joy of giving birth, the joy of recreating reality, recreating worlds, of starting off in a new mission, where the road is wide open, and we have these lessons from the sages that we can about productivity, about how much can we fit in our lifespan, and how much can we do of, again, that we're viewing it like we've left Egypt already. There's no limitation. We're already in this future state, and we're playing games already imagining that Mashiach has already come, the redemption has already arrived, the Redeemer has arrived, and we're already imagining games of the future. What would be a game that we would play in the future? So this was something that I wrote about, and I'll try to link to, about relating to the shadow of a black hole. So scientists, physicists, they depicted the shadow of the black hole some months ago, and it was very exciting. But through this essay that I put together, that it's missing the reflection of the shadow. And again, we talked in the beginning that our life is like a fleeting shadow. So when we're talking about the shadow of the shadow, what we're talking about is, in our context, about fulfilling our potential, even though the shadow is moving, and to be sensitive to every time what is our purpose and ability to think that something we should focus on at every time, right? So we talk about these 14 pairs from Ecclesiastes. So imagine that at every moment in our life, like the 28 days of the Hebrew month, right? So you have these 28 pairs, or we discussed the 14 days of beginning with the month of Nisan, the month of redemption, day and night, day and night, day and night, 14 times. That night and day, the Hebrew calendar starts with the night. That this is not only fulfilling potential, but also a chance to be sensitive to the future state that changes all the time, from day to day or hour to hour, that I'm glimpsing into the future, but through an appreciation of the past, right? Through putting ourselves into the context of Torah, and to knowing that the more we align ourselves with God and His will and His teachings in the Torah, that the more our vision of the future, meaning the world that we're creating in our mind's eye, in our game of imagining what it will be like in the times of Mashiach, these joyous thoughts, these fun and happy thoughts. So the more we align ourselves with God in our service of God, the clearer this depiction will be, and the better we'll be able to live a fulfilled life and inspire others. So I thought just to bring out, we have here these 14 pairs, and it's to begin to appreciate that every game arc, that every story arc of a game is rooted in these 14 pairs. Because why? Again, because it relates to this whole idea of imagining a future world, which is obviously exciting, but to imagine a world where the redemption has already arrived. So how do we get there? Right? Like the road is ahead. Receive the Torah. And if not for the sin of the golden calf, it would have happened at that time. that the exile would have been finished, that the redemption would have come. So it's good to think about a mindset that's rectified, ready in the service of God, but in a way that is complete, that we're fulfilling our days, and not, God forbid, taking away from our days. Right? We're increasing, either folding more and more into our given days, or we're verily, literally increasing our days through our good actions, the days of our life. So, let us read. Everything has an appointed time, and there is a time for every matter under the heaven. A time to give birth and a time to die. So we talked about that. First of all, obviously, this is perhaps the most central theme of every game. So we said that Hevel Hevalim, that what we think is vanity of vanities, to waste time, is about life and death. So if we are playing our game about what's going to be in the times of the redemption, then this is eternal life. This is thinking about eternal life. And it's the dissolution, the doing away completely with death. So we can say that each of these pairs, in the times of Mashiach, the times of the redemption, will only have the good. So how do you get there? Is a lot of fun. It's even this could be writing. This could be other forms of entertainment. How do you get there? It's a fun story to tell. To imagine how to get there. So that's the first. This can be corresponded to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is the first of the month of Nisan, which relates to Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. So it's good to learn Breslov Chassidus if you feel connected to this. Okay. A time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted. So you have games like this also, where you're planting and you're uprooting and planting and uprooting. Okay. A time to kill and a time to heal. Obviously, that's very common in games as well. So again, we're talking about to imagine that we're all healed. Each one of us, and we have emotional pain. We have all types of healing, psychological healing and physical healing. But we're all healed from that in the times of the redemption, which we hope should be right now. We'll all be healed from that. A time to break and a time to build. It's very interesting. Sometimes you break in order for the sake of building. So that obviously relates to a lot of these games, especially where you're building cities and constructing things. But that's another theme. A time to weep and a time to laugh. So weeping and laughing, you usually see either at the end of the game or between, as they show you story arcs, obviously in movies and other forms of entertainment. But in the gaming world, you see that a lot in when they're telling the story as you progress throughout the story. You have times of weeping and times of laughing. So again, in the future, which we hope will be right now, that there'll be great laughter and tears of joy. So a time of wailing and a time of dancing. So again, this needs to be understood. So each of these is a meditation on its own, but we'll continue. A time to cast stones and a time to gather stones. Right? Like to build a fortress is to gather stones. To cast stones is the enemies are coming. So with the redemption, there'll be no reason to throw stones at somebody. So to build up the bricks of the temple, to build the temple, to build the third and eternal temple, and other structures for learning Torah and for housing, and in a world of peace. Right? A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. So that's to think about that. So when a wife sends the husband out to war, so that there's the time of embracing before sending him off, and then the time of war. But this is again, this needs to be thought of. But again, in the story arc of related back to games, this is again part of the expression of the emotion of war is separation. It used to be that in the times of King David, that the soldiers, before they went out to war, they gave a get to their wife, a divorce document to their wife, so they were legally divorced. Complete separation, just in case the husband was killed and he couldn't be found, that the wife should be able to remarry, and there shouldn't be a question of whether the husband is still alive or not. So that was definitely a time of separation between the two. So that's and now in exile we're separated we feel separated from God, but really we just need to open our eyes and reveal the goodness and God's goodness in all of aspects of creation. So that's okay. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. So you have a lot of games that deal with finding things, searching, scavenger hunts, hidden things to discover, and so forth. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to be silent and a time to speak. So we often think about tearing apart and battle and all the trouble that it causes, and the trials and tribulation. But after, hopefully there's some mending, there's healing, and there's growth, and hopefully the cessation of a future war. A time to love and a time to hate, and then the final one. So a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So we started off with a time to give birth and a time to die. And then we end off with a time for war and a time for peace. So to just sum up, the end is wedged in the beginning is wedged in the end, is that birth relates to peace. They're both relating to the feminine construct of creation, of again, to come close to Hashem, to yearn with our heart, to come close, to yearn to return to God. And all of these struggles and all of these difficulties, going from a difficult state to a positive state, played out in a game, is a joyous birthing experience of our thoughts, of positive thoughts, of good thoughts. This is what it should be, a good game. A good positive game is to think about how we're going to get there, and to plan out, and to it says that a wise person knows that which will be born from their actions. So you have a master chess player. You can think of moves, many moves down the line of what his opponent could do, all the different options, and he already sees it. And so we have, as we're maneuvering through the different levels, to realize that we have this our soul is sensing that at every moment there's new potential, there's new opportunities, depending on the day. The Jewish year is filled with holidays and reasons for celebration, ways to connect with God. Like we have coming up the holiday of Purim and the holiday of Passover. And these are all opportunities to give birth to our potential, to connect with God, and to be to learn the secret of working together with time. And so that's the common theme between of all of this. It says that of all the tribes, Issachar was the one that was sensitive to the secrets of time, to also the secret of a leap year. And a leap year is in Hebrew is called Ibor, a pregnant year, because it has an extra month of Adar. It's filled. It's a pregnant year, and to be knowledgeable about time is to again to be filled with the ability to increase our days, and to have filled days, full days. So that's just you can think on your own of the different games and different things that are popular out there. You can pick up Ecclesiastes chapter 3, Kohelet in Hebrew, which is one of the names of King Solomon, Kohelet, and see for yourself, like, oh yeah, this game is this, and this game is this, and to start thinking about what would be my version of the game according to the Torah. Right? How would I